I'm Graham Dixon. It's the 29th of June and it's the very start, Monday, the start of the fourth week of the project. So we're back in trench 11 and we've been working on the peat layer that is overlaying the sand. Working in front of us, it's taken off the sort of transitional layer between our clay subsoil and the peat itself, and we're starting to see wood, which is lovely. And we've been trying to tie in our relationships with the sandy bank that I'm stood on and where that sits in relation to the rest of the trench. We had top layers of peat were coming up to and sitting just over the top of this sand. So sand predates it. That's useful because the peat stops forming here, Bronze Age, so that makes anything underneath the top layer of peat at least 750 BC. Which means that this deposit I've stood on hasn't been deposited by a farmer in the last half decade or something, which is nice to know. My original thoughts were that this is deposited as a flood event, something similar, but Richard Tipping is of completely opposite opinion. He thinks it's a man-made mound or bank. I was probably being a bit conservative and sceptical, so it's nice to have an environmental scientist tell me that this isn't a natural occurrence of sand. He thinks it's been deposited here. So the closest place, Doodle Bay, the beaches up there, Bamborough, I guess for sand. Not seeing any sand around here, not like this. This is pretty much beach sand. Why? There's a large deposit of stones, rocks I suppose you could describe it, that sort of size behind me. It's where Yarney's test pit, trench 8, was put a couple of years back, and they found loads of these big stones down there. So I mean, it could be that they're depositing this sand as a foundation or a stabilising layer so that the stones don't roll off of this mound downhill into the fence. So it's staying as a built-up mound as opposed to flattening out naturally. I think it's the next thing to come off stratigraphically. It's sitting on top of peat, and then again underneath that peat there appears to be yet more sand under. So there's lots of different layers to be peeling back and recording each time. The slightly different sandy stuff that's down here, this darker greyer sand, it seems to have stake holes in it. There's 5 along there, one just down here. It's quite interesting. I believe that's to come off next, and then the sandy bank. Just have to double check the relationships between the two. But it appears that we're already finding negative gut features in the soils here, so already down to archaeology. I wasn't expecting to find anything archaeological until we got a fair way down, judging by Richard's cause that he told us about. So it's interesting, it's good. And we're also finding wood, and some of these woods appear to be planked or shaped in a way that they now have flat sides. So there's a piece here and a piece across here, and both appear to have flat sides on. I don't think they've just been compressed or compacted. Some of the more rounder pieces still has bark on it. There's a piece down here, and that looks like silver birch. As for the larger pieces, not entirely sure. Again, wasn't expecting to find worked wood this high up, if it is indeed worked, which I think it is. But it's really good to be seeing at this level. It's very encouraging. It's going to slow down our strategy somewhat because I wasn't expecting to find it till a lot lower. That's a good thing. And I complained about this when I was working with Tom Lally in trench 9 last year, about how slow everything was going because we kept finding archaeology. And it's a stupid thing to be annoyed at, and a good thing. It's a good problem to have. Yeah, so happy so far. So over the next week, I'm going to carry on taking down, this should be removed sometime tomorrow, the sort of transition layer. And we're going to start identifying stratigraphic relationships between these deposits, remove them in sequence. Those stake holes are going to be recorded pretty soon. And once we've cleared this back, see how far this wood spread goes, we'll be able to work out whether or not we actually do have a building or a house that was built up onto an artificial platform in the middle of the fen that's fallen into the fen. That's quite a stab in the dark. That's quite a leap of faith. So, and that's not what we've got, but it is. Yeah, the wood looks like it's going underneath. I don't know if I mentioned this in this take before, but the wood is going underneath my feet, or it appears to be going underneath the sand. So I mean, the sanding bank doesn't appear to be that deep. It's a lot of effort bringing sand from the beach here.
To sterilise the earlier.
But it's a lot of effort to bring big stones as well.
Do you have any thoughts on why people may have brought the sand?
Why?
Yeah.
No, that's my thought. Why? No, I have no idea. Like I said, I mentioned before, stabilising for the stones that build up on top of it, maybe a flattening layer, filling the gaps between the stones. Sand gets between cracks, quite literally, so it'd just be good for that. Not great to build on, but if you're using it to fill in gaps between larger bits of stone, maybe. My thoughts are it's a lot of effort to go to. If it's man-made, it's brought in, it's been deposited, and there's no water source coming here from Buda Bay. It's not like you're just filling a barge and floating up the waterway, unless we're seeing the sort of water levels we see in 2012, where I am now, sort of this deep. Well, if I stood on the grass, it'd be that deep. That's just ground level. But we're seeing there's modern drainage in here, so if there wasn't modern drainage, would that water level be even higher? I mean, could this be brought in, as a one-time event? 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, maybe it was ridiculously high water levels, so they were able to float it downstream, or upstream. Yeah, upstream. It's a possibility. Makes sense. But I mean, again, there's theories, no evidence. A lot more effort to bring in the stones than it is the sand. We're not entirely sure where the stones come from yet. These are the sorts of stone that are getting out of Trench 8. And like waist height of that, just piled up on top of each other. We see a few in our section. You can see the way it respects the slope or the hill that's been created by our sandbank. There's another deposit on top of that, and sort of a sandy grey, and then a silty clay above that again. And they're both built up on that rise as well. So I think they're forming because of the sand that's been put down originally. I mean, those stones are separated from the sand by another couple of contexts, but I don't know. We'll find out. We'll let you know in next week's episode.